Sunday best.
We're West Virginia.
Welcome back to Finished Machine Made Marbles. We're here with channel favorite, one of our best and favorite and most awesome guests. We have Mr. Ron Shepard. And Ron, we're going to discuss Alley Agates, right? And do a little backstory and history on Alley.
He was the father of all West Virginia swirls. Any company that has hands in all of it, if you're talking West Virginia swirls, you're talking Lawrence Alley. So,
Lawrence Alley the first, there were three.
Right, there was three of them, all the same name. All was Lawrence E. Alley, Lawrence E. Alley Jr., and Lawrence E. Alley the third.
And how did Lawrence Alley the first get involved with marble making and his process?
He had a long history with glass. He was in different companies, partnership, different kinds of glass other than marbles, tumblers and stemware and glass-like globes and a little bit of everything, and he hadn't had a whole lot of luck with it. So in 1928, he was with Akro Agate, one of his later companies, for a short while. And there was people from Ravenswood decided they were going to make marbles. You gotta remember at that time there wasn't many marbles being made. There was only about 3 companies. Christensen, Agate was the only one making swirls.
Right.
So 3 guys, Charles Turnbull and Charlie Mason, and another guy with the last name of Hill, pulled their money together and decided they was gonna make marbles. So they didn't know anything about glass, so they heard about this guy Akro, so they got a hold of Lawrence Alley and asked him if he'd come to Ravenswood and make them marbles. That's where he got his first start.
He started with Akro and then Ravenswood, so he honed his craft there, and then he went on to...
He left Ravenswood, that's a long story, but it was 1928, and then it was called Ravenswood Glass, and then later it became Ravenswood Glass Novelty. But he left there and went to Paden City, and that was in early 1930-31. And
beginning of the Great Depression, right?
Yes, that's when it was starting to peak the height.
Yeah.
So, and then he left there and left there at Pennsburg, or went to Sistersville. That was in 31-32. Another conflict came up, and then he ended up at Pennsburg. That was in the height of the Depression. And then during Pennsburg, the Chinese checker marbles come out, and that's when he had to move for a bigger building to St. Mary's.
Because that's where he actually started like making some good
Right.
money.
That's where he made the first actual profit.
Right.
Was
and that was mid-30s?
1935. He got the first order for Chinese checker marbles from Jack Pressman.
And that's what was flying off the shelf. So it's Chinese checkers.
Once he moved to St. Mary's, he was making, one time he produced 5 million marbles and shipped in 2 days.
And how many machines did he have in his fleet?
Right at that time, I think there was about 8. He got up to probably 12 or 15 at the end.
So that's equal to what Vitro had.
Yes, and this was...
They were the most popular swirl company.
Yes.
I mean, right? I mean, you can just kind of...
And Pennsburg, before he got into Chinese checker marbles, he had holes in the bottom of his shoes. He was so poor. He had cardboard over him to cover the holes in his shoes. One of the employees told me that. And,
wow.
Some of the employees at Pennsburg, most of the employees, stayed working with him because he couldn't make payroll. He couldn't pay them, but they didn't have a whole lot of the choice place to go to work, and they liked him. He knew he was faithful, so they stayed with him for several months. And he, once the Chinese checker marbles hit, they got paid back good.
Wow, what a story!
So, and Pennsburg, when you got hard in, we're talking Depression 30s. When you got hard in, you got 20 cents an hour for a 10-hour day. And they worked 5-6 days a week.
What was the unemployment rate during the Great Depression?
It was
40, right?
Higher than it's ever been any time. So they get,
Wow.
When he started at Pennsburg, it was 20. One person told me, worked there, so he got 20 cents an hour, 10-hour day.
That's if you got paid. And
right.
The rest of it's a handshake, and we'll catch up with it later.
And that's
amazing.
So he didn't have easy going for a long time.
But he made his mark, and then his son, Junior.
Right, he went to work for him about 1935 at Pennsburg. About the same time as the Chinese checker marbles hit. His son went to work for him, and he was mainly doing a lot of sales work and this and that. And Alley never sold marbles to not companies, but businesses and individuals and that. They were pretty much always sold to jobbers like Jack Pressman, Barry Prentice, and that, and everything else. So that was another reason that he didn't put his name on any marble package at all.
There is no Alley agate
package
bags or
with his name on it.
boxes.
A lot of confusion on that, but he was pretty humble. If conflicts come up, he would leave. He would go to another
Yeah.
site, and he was humble. He didn't think, and all his families told me, he didn't think that he was worth the cost of a picture, so you're not going to find many pictures of him. And he
Wow.
didn't think his name, that he was anything special enough to have his name on
How
any
about
package.
that?
So he
A
was
lot of
pretty,
humility
yes,
for a self-made man.
right, he didn't.
And he helped other companies out as well, like for
He's
example,
a
the
major
Velvet-
person in helping start in Vitro. He helped Davis Marble Works acquire their machines. That's why I
Wow.
say he's the father of West Virginia Swirls and Vitro. He worked at Akro and he had a connection there with the chemist there, and that's where he goes, yeah, glass formulas from the
Right.
chemist at Akro.
What a cool dude.
Alley was a friend of Akro Agate. In fact, there's, I suppose you would call it just folk history, that he at one time worked at Akro Agate, but we have no documentation of that. It's just that old-time Akro people had said, oh yes, Alley was a carry-in boy.
Right.
But everybody else says, no, he was already a glass worker at that time. So, hard to say.
Great stuff, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a long history, but it was pretty rough up till the Chinese checker marbles come out.
Right, that was the big, that was
was a
fun
lot of
off the
conflicts
shelf.
and-
And then they made a lot of different children's toy sets. And
He got into that at the Pennsboro location in the Depression. Of course, he remembered being at Akro and seeing him selling the dish sets. He thought, well, if he couldn't sell the marbles or had trouble, he could rely on the dishes.
We're gonna see what works.
Right, so he did the Chiquita brand dishes and Orphan Annie dishes, and he did small glass animals. That was where he got into the first what's called pressed glass. They use a mold and a press and this and that and press the glass animals out, and he made.
Does that also fall under the category of depression glass or no?
It was made during the Depression. I don't
Okay.
think, you know, some people with certain type glass they call depression, but it was all made during the Depression.
Yeah.
And we'll explain later, hopefully, before we
Well,
get this
maybe
done
we'll talk
with
about
these glass insulators everybody asks about.
Okay.
And what they were actually used for and made for.
They're a little hot right now, so a bit
A
of
lot of
hot-
questions about them. People started noticing this, that, and want to know the history and what they were actually used for. So we'll show
We'll
something discuss that later.
Right.
If you got an interest in the insulators, and I'll have some of the animals out. There's a little bit to go with those and the dishes.
Very good. So we'll look at all those products and we're going to focus on the marbles.
That's the main thing. That was his
Yeah.
main thing that made his money, and that's the main thing that everybody collects. And,
Terrific.
once you start getting several years alleys, they start getting harder to find, so then you're going to start gravitating towards the dishes or glass animals or the other
Right.
products. You get
Right.
more in depth with it and more about the history of it.
Well, they have the greatest variety of swirls, right? With the greatest color palette, I would think.
Yes.
I mean, they just made more and
Right.
had more colors.
He
and-
had so many years, you just can't really find the color. If you use a spectrum color chart, you can't really find the color that you don't have a marble of.
And we've learned to break down the different locations on some of the marbles just by the digs, right?
Some of them are unique to one certain spot, like some is unique. They were only made in Sistersville, some were only made in Pennsboro, and some St. Mary's. But you have carryovers when he switched each place
All
too.
right.
Pennsboro marbles, the first year or two, he was making close to the same thing St. Mary's, but then he had to change.
He had this backstock probably
Right,
as well.
exactly. So you get a little bit of
Fascinating.
carryover each year, but some of them were one site and one site only, and that's it.
Right. All right, so we'll try to zero in on some of them and we'll look at some nicknames, right? And
everybody knows, wants to know, how do you know which site it was? And that is all from packaging. You can date the packaging and the people that was there. We'll explain that a little bit. And plus what was dug there. So there's two good sources.
Absolutely.
You don't have much doubt about where it was made.
all right, well then, thank you, Ron, and we will continue
Yep,
in hand.
stay tuned for the marbles.